up for any type of anything. So I decided to do the shows tonight's show topic on that very thing, so that we would be able to share our knowledge that we gained in case there's someone out there that wants to um, rent their property for personal use or their business property. And so that's how we arrived at that particular
Right.
topic.
And like because we're in an area, summer rentals are like more or less going off the charts now, and you don't want to make any type of mistakes along the line that might put yourself in jeopardy or your tenant and you being a landlord yourself, because they will they will definitely try to more or less benefit from it. So
Exactly, and
it's like it's like have at it.
it's been an interesting, very interesting, research. I'll I'll put it like that. And it's been very interesting too,
Hmm.
along the lines of the people that are contacting us, and unfortunately, we are not in the position where we are able to uh, fund a program for anyone. I know people think, we've been in business for all these years and we must be rich, and we get that a lot of time. Every time we talk to people, oh, the Birds got these big money bags. Trust me, if we had big money bags, guess what we'd be doing the show from right now? A big old cruise, which
Or
would be fun. That would be really
or
fun.
like underneath a palm tree with
Right,
drinking pina coladas, doing our thing.
exactly. Or we could be like Lisa Diane, who travels all over the world, and
So
she
you
does
got it now.
her little posts. Um,
Close. Yeah, go ahead.
oh,
So you can get started now.
so I mean, basically, we are looking for a person who has an existing summer program and they want to expand it, or they want to have a bigger location. So you might have like a group of kids, teenagers at one location, and maybe middle school at another. That would be expansion. Or you have so many kids under a certain realm at the location you used last year, and you were busting at the seams and you need a bigger spot. So that's the person that we're looking for. So in the midst of all of that, um, we started to look at professional and business, personal, to see what give you some tips on how to do that. So the first thing I want to talk about is that, and this is specifically for personal, before you rent out your home, there's 6 things. Did the research on the internet. I found like 6 things that I thought were really important to share with you. And one of them, of course, is to find a good tenant. And the way that you do that is a couple of ways. You can put a sign in
Right.
your yard.
And this is key because this is what's going to be like the basics of the foundation.
Exactly. And I think that if you do it in your yard, that you expose yourself, I think, to um, people, if you're not living at that home, you may expose yourself to the fact that it'll appear as though it's empty, and whatever. You know how that goes. So I kind of wouldn't recommend that. The other recommendations would be local newspapers, and you can actually run a small classified ad in the local newspaper for not too much, and you're able to at that point, get people to call you directly. And this is if you're doing it on your own, and you can. I mean, not everybody wants to give up. If you use a realtor, then you're going to give up the first month's rent. So whatever you're charging, if it's $1,000, the person is going to pay you 1 month security or 1.5 months security and the first month's rent. Well, the realtor will get that first month's rent. So you lose that because you're using them. But I think it's a good idea because then you are out of the picture and they are representing you. They take all the phone calls. They create all the paperwork, the necessary paperwork. They do all the background checks. They do everything for you, and they really deserve that first month's rent because they're doing a lot of work. They hold all the showings, and that could be crazy in itself. You could be all day, depending on the response that you get.
Right.
So they're earning their money. But if you want to do it yourself, these tips are for you if you want to do it yourself. So you would run a ad in the local newspaper, um, and do that both print and online. So there's a lot of online locations that you can. Facebook, you know,
Yeah,
Facebook's used for
I've seen a
everything.
couple of them
Hmm.
up there too, but like a lot of times too, what you don't want to fall, like fall one is victim of. A lot of people come out of the come out of the woodworks, just family, friends, wanting that favor. Can you hook me up?
Remember me.
Can you? Hey, cuz, how you doing? Like you remember me. I'm like I'm a Jason from your aunt removed twice. You know what I mean? It's all that comes into play. But you want to, in my opinion, you want to go with like a realtor. So what you give up like that 1 month's rent. But there's a lot of stuff that like happens in the background, which like Trina's going to go through. With that will like more or less benefit you as the renter. I
Yeah, because
mean,
I'm
like
going to give it to you
you
from
know,
both
you
sides.
know,
If you're a renter or you're the actual landlord, and finding a good tenant could be very difficult. Um, the one thing that you definitely want to do is to create an application if you're doing it yourself. You can go online and Google a tenant application form if you want. I would not necessarily use that as my 1 page or 3 page application that includes everything and not worry about it. What I recommend is to take a sample like we have here and modify it to fit your needs. So the standard application is going to include information about their background, their current employment, where they worked, references, that kind of thing. And I kind of think that references, no one's going to write down a person as a reference if they're not going to say anything good about them. So I think references is a total piece of junk because it doesn't make good sense to me. Um, they're going to be a friend or a relative or somebody that's going to
right?
say
That's going to
mostly
say
good about
kindly
you.
of you.
So one of the things that I added to our lease application was what I wanted the potential renter to do is tell me about their utilities. Are the utilities in your name? And if so, that to me that's more of a reference. So if you have electric and gas and Comcast and all that, you can't really call them up and ask them whether or not they have these accounts in their names as a potential
Right, because
landlord.
they won't tell you anyway.
Right. And they could actually lie on the application as well. But one of the things that you can do is put inside the application and the lease that if they fail to get utilities in their name, you don't want to have a tenant that is on your lease, but then the utility bills are in someone else's name, and that could cause problems for you as a landlord.
Hey,
Or they get into the rental property, or they give you the down payment, and then when it comes time to get the utilities turned on in their name, they can't, and now you're already caught up. And so the next question is, well, okay, we'll leave it in our name until you get things straightened
and
out.
that's a no-no.
No, no.
That's a no-no.
So that's a key question to make sure that you find out or ask them if they have utilities in their name. And the way that you can prove that they do is you ask for a copy of their bill, your electric bill, your gas bill, as well as their any other utilities that you may have in your location. And that's how you prove that. And in the application, you could just tell them when you have that question, you just have them um, attach it. Check off yes, who's the name in, and then attach your last and most current bill, and then you have proof. So it's not confidential information. It's well within your rights as a landlord to know that they can get the utilities transferred over into their name. And important information on that bill as a landlord. If the bill's $1,000, what does that tell you? The bills are not paid on time. So am I going to be in a house and I'm going to be freezing cold? Or am I going to, and what am I going to pay? Am I going to pay my rent or am I going to pay the heat bill? Am I going to pay the electric bill or am I going to pay the rent? So it gives you an inside clear picture, landlords, of who your potential client could be. Um, Another important thing on the application, and this is just initial, is that you're not spending any money, they're not spending any money. So it's just that if they see the location and they want to actually move forward, then the application process starts. And then this is where you get for free a lot of your good detailed information. So you're going to want to see their pay stubs and good information on the pay stub. The pay stub from a landlord perspective will actually detail how much they've made for the year. Now, if you're doing it now, this is only February, about to be March, you want the pay stubs for December and January. Because guess what December is going to tell you? December is going to tell you whether the salary is correct.
If they worked
and
all
they worked the
year.
whole year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It'll also tell you, if you do your math, if they missed how much sick time. Remember on that, it tells you how much sick time you've done. And if they're making $300 a week and they work 52 weeks a year, you do your math on that number. And if that gross amount is not somewhere in that ballpark, that means they missed a lot of time.
And I was reading,
because vacation pay you get paid for, even sick time you get paid for.
right.
But if you miss time and you didn't get paid at all, that is going to be a reflection. So it's free ways to actually eliminate people that you may be at risk for.
A lot of people try to want us coming underneath the radar and like saying that they worked and they didn't work. And a lot of times they say, well, I was on disability or this and that. Now, a lot of people know like the system. They know how to make the system work for them. And this is why you have to do your due diligence.
Yeah.
And like making sure that you're not duped in any way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's like key also. Go ahead. That's one that add that to it too.
Also on the application, you are going to want them to, in some cases, maybe take, if you're not getting clear data from the stubs, you may want to ask them for their tax return for the last year, and you can get information from that. They definitely are going to have to give you their social security number so you can run the credit checks and all that. So tax returns are not off limits because they have your social security number on there, because you really need a social security number anyway.
Okay, now how does that work too? Trina, whereas if you run, do we have to run a credit check on them, or they have to run it themselves?
Well, yeah, I'm going to go into that next in a few minutes. Also on that application is going to be, and we're going in stages. So again, you posted your rental property online in the newspaper, Facebook, etc. The next step is to find a good tenant, and the way you do that is to advertise for it. And then, of course, the next step is this application process. And getting through the application process are the tips that we just gave you. Second is your bank references. You want to make sure that they have a bank account set up, and you may or may not ask them for to attach, not so much because you want to know how much they have in the bank, but just proof that they have. And all they can do is just take the top part of the bank statement, tear off the bottom where it starts to detail the balances and checks written. You don't need all that. You just want that top part of this bank statement that has been mailed out to you. We had someone that actually said they lived in this house for 3 years, and tax returns, the W-2 statement, and the bank statement came back, and they were on 3 different addresses.
3 different addresses.
So
now, who does that?
Red flag. Red flag. So there are inside things that you can take a look at that will let you know whether or not you're dealing with a reputable person that's not going to stiff you with the rent. So when you ask for all these different types of documents, you're gathering your information before you spend a dime and before the client spends a dime. And if they're looking for a place to move to, they're going to have those documents readily and available. So getting the bank statement, not the detail of it, just the top part where you'll see their name and address. It won't even have their account number. And if it is, I'm going to give you tips as a renter what you do when you have a landlord that asks you for all these different pieces of information. I'm going to cover that next. Also, if there's a co-applicant, the second person that's going to be living in the house, those same documents that you're asking of the first person, you're going to want to get from the second person as well. And that's pretty much all that's going to be on there. The employment history, you get the stub and all that, but they're going to tell you where they work, how long they've been working there, And another key information piece that should be on the application is where they live now and how much rent they pay now. What is their average utilities? What is your average? So you get people to start thinking and telling you, well, what you'll find out what they are accustomed to paying, and you already know what your property is going to be per month. So if they're already accustomed to paying $300-400 a month for gas or heat or whatever, then and they're living day by day, they're going to be able to afford to pay. So there's a lot of key pieces of information with the documents that you ask. So that's pretty much what you're going to be looking for as a landlord. Now, as a tenant, when we do any kind of training, we always like to give both sides. So as a tenant, you want to check out the landlord. Ask the landlord what other properties do they have. If they only have that one property that you're looking at and the previous tenant is about to move out, go by one day, knock on the door, and ask them what kind of landlord was this person. Did he fix the repairs when things broke down? How long did it take for those things to get repaired and fixed? If there were any kind of, like any kind of documents that came to that address that were legal, that would indicate that the landlord was in trouble on some level, like paying their taxes, paying the sewer bill. Maybe they had some kind of issues with their utility bills. So basically, do your due diligence as a tenant to make sure that you are checking to make sure that this landlord is not what do you call it? Slumlord.
Yeah,
A
slumlord.
slumlord. Those are one of the things that you can check out. You could also, and this is what I would do if I were a renter, is I'd have my own application where they would fill out how long the house has been uh, under their ownership, um, are their bills and all, just reverse the role. Take the same, one that they gave you and modify it to be an application so that you can interview the landlord. You have every right to ask that landlord as many questions as you feel necessary, so that you can make sure that that landlord is going to be a good fit for you as well. And they need to give you 3 references. And make sure you call them. Don't get the references and then pretend. Even though I did say people are not going to give you someone that's going to say anything bad about them, but you might get lucky one day and one of those references that they give you is having a bad day, and then may tell you all you need to know about what kind of landlord they are. So develop your own. And one of the things that the landlord is going to get you to do on the application process is sign it. You also get them to sign your application.
Your application also.
And in your application, you can put questions in there. What will be the turnaround time if I have a repair that needs to be done? What will be the turnaround time or what are the procedures for, and some of this stuff may be in the lease as well. But if you're not at that point yet, you want to know. Don't wait until you get ready to sign the lease to ask these questions. They're not waiting to ask the questions with the application, and you should not either. You should have your application that the landlord fills out, such as when do you what's the turnaround time for getting repairs? Secondly, if and when there's any kind of issue that may legally come to your address, where is he located so that you can you can forward the information. What is his mailing address? That important kind of information, because sometimes a realtor's use and you don't have an address for the landlord. And if you're trying to move out in the future, you have to send them notice in the mail, certified. And if you don't have a good address, or they're trying to, swipe around the receiving it so that they can charge and keep your rental deposit, you might send out a piece of mail to them, notifying them, and then it may come back, and then you haven't done your due diligence to let them know that you're moving. And it's up to you to make sure you keep a current contact information for the landlord. So it's a lot of things that you need to be aware of as a tenant and interview the landlord.
Right. Which like more or less brings it up to speed, just like you said. Like don't rent like to anyone before um asking for like a credit history and like a back because if you go by way of being it like haphazard, renting renting any like one of this dwelling, it's just like almost like buying a house. It's a lot of paperwork that needs to be signed in order to make this transaction or like this agreement like to be on task. And you got to make sure that the tenant who pays like the rent, that is late fees in there. They're like supposed to take care of the trash. Um, and before they move in, you
Wait a minute, don't go too.
like
Yeah,
you have
yeah,
to
yeah.
lay out.
You're getting ahead because we haven't
Okay,
gotten
you have to
there.
lay all that in. But
Wait.
another, okay, but like another thing too is like make make sure everything is in writing. That's the key.
Okay.
All right, go ahead,
Application,
Jen.
right. All
Yeah,
right. I didn't want you to get ahead of the
yeah,
process.
okay.
Um, so it's good that you bring out the point about the tenant getting everything in writing. You also, as a landlord, need to get everything in writing. But continuing with the process of the application,
hmm
there's a place for you to sign as well as the landlord on the application. This is the pre-process. Make sure you put a place on your form that you fill out for them to sign as well as you sign. So you both walk away with documentation to support you as a renter and them as a tenant. I just wanted to say that
Okay.
before we get. And so once you get the application process, then the next step is going to be that the landlord, potential landlord, is going to run a credit check on you and a background check. And so we had that up on the screen, but it kind
But
of
it went
went.
out. But
It
like,
went. Yeah, it went somewhere.
yeah, we can
So
still proceed. But like, another thing too, I just found out too, if you do like from month to month, that has to be documented also because a lot of people can like want us, um, want to stiff you with that because then it becomes some type of squatter rights that they have on your property, and then now you have to go into the legal system to get them out, etc., etc. Go ahead.
all right, I wanted to get to this tenant screening, and you know what I just thought of? There is no.
What's that?
Try to Google it, Rick. Is there landlord screening?
Yeah, like that's like part of like the
No, an
process
app.
too.
No, I
Oh
mean
no.
like an app or a website.
Oh,
Yeah,
no,
I don't
I
know
didn't
about that.
investigate that part.
Anyway, the tenant background search we're back on the second process. So you like the place. They passed the test for the application. Everything's in place. They look like a prime candidate. You're interested as a tenant. They're interested as a landlord, and so you move to the second level. And one thing I want to point out: make sure you read over both parties your documents. You read the copy of the application that you filled out and make sure that everything is answered correctly, because the landlord is going to be checking as well. And then whatever you gave him, make sure you read over in detail what you had him fill out with your landlord application. And some people may not have heard of landlord application, but I'm just saying how I would handle it. If I was a renter, I would have my own landlord application. Now, the next step is after the application process on both parts, you're moving forward. Now you're going to spend some money. And so the landlord is going to want to run a tenant background search. And when you do that, you can do it right off online. There's a website called tenantbackgroundsearch.com. And on there's 3 levels of reports that you can get on a person. And they range from $19.99 to $29.99. And of course, there's some things that are included and some things that are not. A full package for $29.99 is going to do the criminal, sex offender, bankruptcies, foreclosures, medical collection, employment summary, aliases, past address history, and of course the credit report with the FICO score. And last but not least, any nationwide evictions or judgments. So that's the full report for $29.99. There's a $22.99 that does not include past evictions or judgments. And then there's a $19.99 that only includes a criminal check, sex offender, and credit. Actually, no credit report, just criminal record, sex offender, and something called a Patriot Act search, whatever that is. So I can't imagine a landlord wanting to only receive the $19.99 package. They're going to want the $29.99 package, and guess what? That package is paid for by the potential tenant. So
Right.
that costs you as the tenant the money, and so you're going to be prepared to spend that money to basically back up what you said on the application.
Because a lot of people have like what they call known aliases. They write down their name one way and they go get either credit or something in another way. So that's why you want like the one is 20. I would go with the full one because you right now when you deal with money you have to be thorough.
And a report is going to go, once the report is completed, it's going to go to whoever you assign it to, but keep a copy of it. In case things don't work out, then you still have a current report that you can send. And I think it's probably good for 15, 30 days. So keep it. There's another website called cozy.com that you can check out as well. And that cozy.com is actually free to tenants. I mean, free to landlords. Well, they're all free to landlords because, they're looking for you to get them business because you send the tenant to that particular website of your choice, and from that they fill out the application or complete the process, and they pay for it. So you're bringing them in money, so of course it's free.
Mm-hmm.
Now you've done the background check and credit check. All those reports are good. You got your applications that are in place, and I want to just also say to tenants, go to Better Business Bureau and check them out. Check out the landlord to see if they're listed and someone's complained about them. I believe there is a landlord. Let me just check.
They always have some type of survey that you can go to just to see if you're on the map. Like for instance, like if you're a landlord that keeps the weeds high, you don't do any type of maintenance on like the landscaping. You can like want to like submit or report that in, and then you become. It's just all kinds of things that are out there. Yeah, you know what I mean. But like you got to find that out before you move in because there is like what they call a moving check-in, a moving checklist, and make sure all of your inspections, existing damages, all that is like one is written down also.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you got to do.
There's a website called tenantresourcecenter.org. Tenantresourcecenter.org. And it gives you a bunch of tips on this website on your rights as a tenant. It also gives you a checklist on what to do to prepare to become a renter. And there are some rights that you have where you can get information about small claims because they're public record. When you are a landlord in a tenant dispute and you go to court, those records are public records. And that's how you can find out about a tenant, about a landlord. Just like they find out about you. So is a landlord, everybody's, 10 or 15 people been living in this house. How come he's having such a bad and quick turnover? So you can get that information. But all that kind of stuff is on this website. Consumer protection tips, even police records. And I'm sure that they're, you got to pay for that. But, it's just like a doctor. You can check your doctor out online before you select him. You can check out the landlord as well. So that is tenantresourcecenter.org. And I'm going to write that down in case anybody calls up and says resourcecenter.com or .org. .org. All right. So we've gone through finding a good tenant. Oh, I was going to say, go to the Better Business Bureau, and you can also investigate if any complaints have been filed against the landlord. If you're also doing the background checks as a landlord, you can use, the regular credit card background checks through Equifax, Experian, and all that. There's also a website called landlord.com. Now, this website is also beneficial to the tenant as well as the landlord.com, because it will inform you of a lot of information that is free for you as a tenant and as well as a landlord. And if you're a renter and you don't have a realtor representing you to rent, you're doing this on your own, there's a do-it-yourself section there where it gives you all kinds of tips on being a tenant as well as being a landlord. And a lot of those forms are out there that you can download if you're a landlord and you don't have them, opposed to going and buying them. You can actually download them free. There's also a professional advice section on there, and it represents the landlord, and um, it's pretty much designed for them, not so much a tenant. So you definitely, but it's good to know what the landlord has access to so that you can find out information that you need as well. So you're going to want to check that out. Next on my topic list is number 3 on the list, and that is trying to figure out how much to charge for rent and how much you can pay for rent. So you both need to be equipped and knowledgeable about what that price is going to be. So for a landlord, you can check out rental amounts in the local area. You could go to Zillow.com and click on the renting tab and look at the map and see areas in that vicinity who are renting, where properties are being rented out, and see what the rent is for those. And that's very informative. Zillow.com is real important. And it'll just tell you straight up what the rental prices are. And it'll also tell you as a renter what's available in the area that you want to live in. And you can see what the comparable rents are being paid for those houses in that area. So if you get a landlord that wants to charge you $1,500 and everybody else around you is paying $1,000, you can bring that up and say, look, the comparable rate in this area for this location is on average $1,000. So all of these tips that we're giving you are good for you as a tenant as well as a landlord.
Also,
and be realistic.
Right, you're right, you must establish a fair system setting, like collecting, holding, returning, like the amounts, which, like, like next you're going to probably talk about, like the security, like deposit. Now, I don't know how that works. We are like between like two states, and I want to make that, like bear that in mind. Each state varies, so you have to go to your local municipality or wherever you are to make sure you get those laws and you abide by those laws, because they do change from state to state.
Yeah, they do. Yes, they do. And you might have a landlord that lives in another state but has property in another state and maybe trying to impose laws where they live on you in your state, and they don't apply. They don't apply. Oh, and God behold, the county, the state, no, the municipality, they get their money too. Oh, it's just, oh my.
All right, well, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, I don't even want to talk about
like
what they charge the landlord.
That will make her really annoyed, and she won't get finished.
All these ridiculous inspections and this and that, and I believe in protection. Making sure that every the tenant's protected as well as the landlord's protected. But the rates that these municipalities charge you just to rent your own property that you pay taxes on,
they have been paying taxes,
and they want a piece of it. They're killing you with the taxes, and then they want to know. Like, we got this document for the TByrd Center, wanting to know if we had we had any kind of leases, business leases, and if so, how much did we get per month? I'm like, that's none of your business. I pay $22,000 a year in taxes. That's enough. You're not getting anything else. Nothing. Zero. I just think that is just, I don't even want to talk about it. Next is protecting yourself with the lease. The lease is next. So, you got through the advertising of your property. You got through the tenant pool. You're down to the person that you want to get. You run the background check and all those other interesting facts about a tenant. And now you develop the lease. So what should be in the lease? Well, first of all, it should be a written lease. And everybody should understand exactly. So all that little hidden small data, I'm the kind of person, I want to sit down with you, the realtor, and have you, and you're going to, for the most part, initial every area, but not just have you initial it so you can hurry and get through the signing of it, but initial it and explain every detail so that, and, in today's world, get permission. Ask the person, can you record it? So if down the road and they're evicting you, you got this video saying exactly what the landlord promised you and exactly what the tenant promised.
You think that'll hold up in court? That will be.
Well, if you get permission, you can't videotape somebody without their permission.
Yeah, that's a different thing.
But if you, if you get, ask for permission. I want your permission. And guess what? If a landlord doesn't want you to record anything, what's wrong with that picture? If the tenant doesn't want you to record what you're saying, what's wrong with that picture?
They're going to be camera shy.
Well, don't look at them. Just go like that and then put the camera down. But you're protecting yourself as a landlord and you're protecting yourself as a tenant. And it'll come in handy because we're going to talk lastly about before you move in. So this is part of what you need in your before you move in. And that is the landlord promising, making all your promises in writing and verbally, and you got video to prove it.
And make them all come true.
Right. Like Rick said, the laws for leases are different across the states. So make sure that, I think before you sign anything, you should have a lawyer on retainer for everything. You should just have a lawyer. If you're not a business owner, which we are, so we've always had to have one. But if you're an everyday person, I would find, a friend of the family or a friend of the family. And even if you don't plan on doing anything that will require legal services, I would still go talk to a lawyer, legal aid, or somebody and say, look, this is what I'm about to sign. Can you advise me?
And they have free consultations. You can go in, maybe on a free thing. Or I recommend staying away from that prepaid legal debt. That might not be what you want.
Well, we won't talk about that. Don't use a blank lease if you're a landlord. Customize the lease to fit your needs. So you can download a lease off the internet, and then you can pull out pieces that are good for you, pull out the pieces that are not, replace it with the pieces that really fit your location and the area that you live in and what you're going to do and what you're not going to do. And be detailed. If the lease is 5 pages long, let it be 5 pages long. As a landlord, have them initial every sentence. So that way they can't say. And it's in your best interest to sit down and go over everything and videotape it and get their permission. And in that lease at the bottom, I have given my permission to videotape this application or lease process. So that you got proof that that you got the video legally. And you do the same thing as a tenant. And don't let the landlord say, oh, I'll send you a copy of it. No, you have your own copy. Vice versa. So there's a couple of different ways that you can do a lease. A month-to-month lease offers more flexibility, especially if you're trying to sell your building or your business or your home, and you want to just get some money in to hold you over until it's sold. Make sure you get a security deposit, which in most cases is 1 month and 1.5 month. Some places want 2 months. Especially the ones down at the shore when it's a summer home, they ask for 2 months security because, down at Ocean City and Long Point, all those places, sometimes those places get trashed. Never hear about it in the news, but they get trashed, and you want to make sure that lease, that the rent covers it, and it covers it. Yep. Rental due date and what the penalties are. Make sure you're clear on that. As a tenant, I would have a little stipulation in there if there's some extenuating circumstances like loss of job that, you can get an extension. So it's not just written in stone. If you don't pay your rent in 30 days, if you get loss of job, then maybe the least you can negotiate with that landlord is that they waive the late fees, something like that as a tenant. as a landlord, make sure that, it's written clearly and that they understand it and they initial it. Repairs, who's responsible for what, routine upkeep and maintenance responsibilities such as the lawn, shoveling the snow, that kind of thing. List of who's going to be in that house. So be very careful as a landlord that you don't have like two people that come and look at the place and, oh, we don't, our kids are grown and they live on their own, and next thing you come by there and there's like 7 cars out there and the whole family's living in that 3-bedroom house, tearing up everything,
blowing it up.
And make sure it's very clear that those listed tenants that are listed on the lease are the only people that could be living in there. And trust me, there's ways of finding out if that's not the case, because people that are going to live there are going to have their mail sent there and all kinds of things. There's all kinds of ways a landlord can find out what the truth is. So just be careful as a tenant to do the right thing. Rules of behavior, including noise levels and neighborly conduct, whether or not you allow someone to smoke in your house, have
and
pets.
that's a big one too.
Yeah, because
smoking and pets.
Smoking could deter the next tenant.
Right. And like, me myself, I'm definitely like a pet lover. You know what I mean? So we will allow that to like a certain degree, but like you and I talk about that, but we definitely don't want to turn anybody off, but like these are things that you need to be aware of.
And also, you can, as a landlord and a tenant, you should have it anyway, is mandate in the lease that they have renter's insurance. So that if they do have a dog and the dog bites somebody, you're not taking responsibility over it as a landlord. The tenant is responsible for that dog biting somebody, and they have insurance to cover it. And you can have that insurance policy, have you listed as the landlord, and they have to have proof of that before they move in. And that way you're not, oh, I'll get it. Something happens. Well, where is it? Oh, I never got it.
And then you're the one on the hook. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
For that.
So have the renter's insurance as part of the requirements, and they have to show the policy. And if you're listed on it, if it defaults, they will contact you and let you know as the landlord.
So now that will be all in the rental agreement.
In the lease, yes. Correct. Pet policy. So if you do have a dog and he tears up the whatever, have a certain paragraph in there that protects you as the landlord. How are you going to pay? Now, with today's technology, you can go to the bank, set up a bank account, joint bank account, and they deposit the money in there every month. They cannot make withdrawals, but they can make deposits because their name is on it as a tenant. You can get a landlord-tenant account, and that way you don't have to worry about coming to buy someone's house to pick up a check. Nobody wants you coming to do that. When you rent your spot out, you don't want the landlord there for no reason whatsoever.
Other than like to fix a problem or something like that, like to do repairs.
Exactly. And you also have to have your eviction procedures in that lease so that the tenant knows if they are going to be evicted, what could cause that eviction. So that they don't say, well, I didn't know, I didn't this and that. And also, before you as a tenant make a decision to accept this location to rent, in your landlord application, one of the questions may be, what is your eviction policy? What are your eviction deadlines? Because remember, the application process is for you to get to know the tenant and the tenant to get to know you. So that's information. So don't wait till you get to the lease part of the deal to find out, oh, this won't work. This is not, and you wasted like a couple of weeks or a couple of days even with information that you just can't live with, you can't tolerate, you can't do. So if you put that in your application, the application process is to get as much information as you can before you decide to move forward and get the background check and all that. So just be prepared and knowing as much about the tenant as you can prior, and then as the landlord prior to actually getting to stage 2 or 3. 2 meaning you're getting the background check, 3 you're at the lease. So a lot of information. Didn't think it was so involved. Most people don't, but you gotta do diligence, gotta do your homework. And Next is, of course, I mentioned it a little bit, but protect your property with insurance. So as a landlord, you need your own policy so that if they tear it up, the insurance policy will cover those repairs as and that will offset if the deposit is not enough to cover those repairs. So you need to protect your property with insurance as a landlord as well. And don't just rely on your deposit, keeping that, because trust me, it'll probably be worth 1,300 this year, but 2 or 3 years down the road when you have to evict somebody, that cost is going from 1,300 to maybe 2,600. So the deposit never changes. It just grows because you have to put it in an interest-bearing account, but it doesn't grow that fast.
Mm-hmm.
And so you need to have an insurance policy that covers your home structure, the legal costs, any kind of medical expenses that may occur, loss of rental income, repairs if needed, and you are not responsible for the tenant's belongings, but you must require them to buy renter's insurance. And they will try to sue you for the contents. Let's say the roof leaked and water came in. Um, Most tenants are going to take you to small claims court and try to get the money for it.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's in your lease that they are responsible because they must have renter's insurance, then you are waiving any responsibility whatsoever, and the court will back you up for that.
So in other words, another way of looking at it, like the roof leaks, it leaks on your property. You should have insurance for your property to replace whatever's been damaged.
Right. And remember, your homeowner's insurance policy is not this policy. It's a totally different policy, which is for a property owner who is renting the property. So you're going to keep your homeowner's insurance because that's to replace the building if it's torn down. But all those other things, it is a renter's insurance policy that you get with your homeowner's insurance. It's a separate policy within your policy to say that this home is now being rented, and it protects you. And trust me, the insurance company will ride by. They do inspections. They do inspections from outside. Mm-hmm. So they know if, it's been empty for a minute and now it's a new person living there, and, they don't really have proof that you're renting it to someone else as a tenant, but they do have proof that you don't live there, because you don't have your mail, your personal mail for your insurance policy going there. You're going to change that address, so they're going to know. And next is what you should do. Well, we had talked about it a little bit. If you're going to hire a realtor to take care of everything, know that you're going to be giving up some money for them. And if you do have a realtor handle it, not only are you going to be giving them a nice piece of chunk, but you can also get them to monitor the property and be the property manager.
Right, the property manager.
And that works out good. And then they get like 10 or 15%.
So you never see the tenant.
So you never have to deal with the tenant. They make sure the rents are paid. They handle the repairs. That's just great. Especially if you don't live in the area. That would be great for you to have somebody that can handle everything. But of course, they're going to get a percentage of every month's rent. So they get the first month's rent for finding you the tenant. And then they get a percentage of every month going forward to manage the property for you. Make sure. And if you get a good one, they'll be going by, once a month, maybe every 3 months, and making sure that the property is being upkept and, kept the way that you want it to be kept. The lawn is being manicured, and all things that are supposed to be done based on the lease are actually being done. So,
all right.
Got a nice proposal. Presentation that if you're interested and you may have missed the show, or you want to just get the ebook that we have, it's available to you. All you got to do is email us at tbyrdlive@gmail.com, and we'll send you out a copy of it. I'll post that up.
All right. Just like to encapsulate what we all went over. We went over the pre-post, the post, and the eviction. And I'm just gonna break it down one more time on my list. As far as like the tenants screening, that was number 1. Number 2, get everything in writing. Number 3, handle security deposits properly. A lot of people get that like security deposits, and they spend it, or like maybe like a repair come up, you have to put that in the bank, and it has to be in escrow in case something happens. All right. Number four, make all repairs. You should have a checklist. They should go through the house, and like now, like the city does it also.
Well, they make you do it. They don't do it.
Okay, well they do.
No,
How do
they
they
make
do
you
it?
do it.
Okay, like there's a checklist to make sure everything is like more or less livable, fit. I'm like talking about as far as um I'm not like I heard some horror stories where somebody moved into a place that had mold and had to move right back out. But like at any rate, all make all necessary repairs. Number five, um, you have to provide a notice before entering a, like unit. That should also be in the,
In the lease.
in like the rental like agreement also. As I went over, like disclose any environmental hazards. You know, since I was talking about the mold or what have you, make sure all environmental toxins are off the premises. And there's a place that you can go, and let disclosure for rental properties that are not supposed to be anywhere near like any type of dwelling. Uh, Number eight, just like Trina talked about earlier, overseeing property managers. Um, it'd be best to put that manager like in place, just like she said. You won't ever have to see your tenant, and they don't even have to see you. Everything will more or less like be like more or less transferred through like the realtor. And then and number nine, key, very key, obtain insurance. Everybody is sue happy, want to be happy, and they going to try to make you sad. Get that insurance.
All right. Just want to give a couple of shout outs. Renaissance Rick, Nathan Evans, Alex Harkey,
This
Grace Crump
Renaissance Rick.
Holly. Appreciate you guys joining us. I want to say thank you.
Even,
And go ahead.
even though there was a lot of intel here that you need to want to go over if you are happen to be in the category of moving or like a landlord tenant, like do that research because that's what's going to keep you out of hot water. Definitely. And I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in, man. This hour went by pretty fast,
Yeah.
because like the matter of fact, I think you talked it all through. Like you coached them through it. You gave a lot of data out. And like this was like very, very like beneficial. Man.
It is very good.
I'm like want to put this like on file myself.
That's the ebook, so we'll
Yeah.
be able to send it out. And we have a sample application. We have a sample application, and we also have the list of websites that you can get the free services from. So if you're in that information, I'm just gonna put the TByrd live at gmail.com, and you can email us for valuable ebook of information covered on the show.
Right, this was like like your baby because you look like you could be like a real stern landlord. So I know you got all the
I'm gonna check.
covered.
I'm
You know
very
what I mean?
particular, strict for detail. Details are my key. Like I had a application, and like I said, it was 3 different addresses.
Man, you really scrutinized that thing,
right?
didn't you?
And then I looked and saw that the employment history didn't match. The pay stub said one amount, and I calculated it, and it ended up not being that amount per year. It was substantially less. So people write anything they want to write on the application, but that supporting documentation comes with it.
You don't do the research.
Yeah, they don't think you look at it, but I do. I look at it for detail, and you just got to make sure that you pay attention to close detail when you're, renting out something that you worked really hard to establish and maintain, and then you're turning it over to somebody and hoping that they're going to do the same thing, take good care of it, and you got to make sure that you know who that is, and that you're never going to know for sure, but you got to do as much as you can, due diligence to see if you've done as much as you can do to make sure of it. So Well, I'm happy that you tuned in. We'll be back next week, Wednesday, 7 p.m. again, with our latest edition of TByrd Live. Thanks for joining.
Thank you for joining us. Yeah,
Oh, and happy Black History Month. Tomorrow's the last day.
Oh,
and I
yes.
wanted to give this
Matter
message.
of fact, before we move on, like you didn't stop it, did you?
No, I didn't stop it. Here's the message we wanted to give.
She has the master control today, so
I be glad when Facebook allows you to swap between
I think they're
the
gonna charge you
screen.
for that. I think
Well,
they're gonna
I
charge you for
would
that.
pay for it, but I want you to be able to see my screen, and it works good. But I'm working on another
On some
software.
platforms,
So,
yeah.
some other platform. These are our Black History tips for the year. May we realize the struggle continues. May we realize our growth and our net worth. May we realize we need only ourselves. May we realize our importance and strength. May we realize our original culture and morality with respect of who we really are. Rick and Trina Bird.
All right, that sounds like a mouthful.
We're out. I want to be on that screen.
Yeah, we gotta get this. We'll start. You didn't stop.
No, it's not in there. How does it not stop? Oh, there it is.
It's alright, man.
No, it was good.
Just gotta get some set up.